Hey woodcutters, Topsaw here. Today's project is a balance board. Pretty easy project to do. Primarily going to be built in Mastercam and the CNC router. Really fun project, not too much material cost. Students could use it for the rest of their lives to stay in shape. How it works is you have a top lid, 2 rollers on it, and a crossbar. I'll start out by showing you how to program it in Mastercam. Okay, here's the one we're going to build right here, a view from the bottom. 17.5 by 13. And then this has a rise of 2 and a run of 12.5 with the cross member. The way this thing's going to be the strongest is if we cut a pocket that looks like the letter H and then drop all 3 of these things in. I think we'll probably use plywood for the top and then anything for this, MDF, because it's pretty strong under compression. So the first step is just to sketch out the bottom of the board and the size of the pocket. So these are the dimensions kind of given. And then I'm going to put in some more dimensions, so I'll have this in front of me when I'm in Mastercam. The overall length is 17.5 down here. Everything's in inches. I have it in my title block in the bottom there. This is 12.5, so 17.5 minus 12.5 is 5. Cut that in half is 2.5. A couple other things you really want to check before you do this layout is that even though it's 3/4 inch plywood, if I'm going to use that MDF to fit in here, check it with calipers, and it turns out that MDF is only 720 thousandths thick, not the 750. So I'm going to set these thicknesses to 720. The other thing I'm going to do too is I'm actually going to draw a center line on my part, and I'm only going to draw the right side and reflect it over that line. So your plans are really going to be much more like the red ones. These are just notes to self before I start drawing in Mastercam. So one thing I'm going to do here is this is 8.5 from 13, 4.5. So this line right here is going to be offset the difference. So this will be 2.25 offset. And then this line right here is going to be offset down 720 thou. Everything's in inches. That's in my title block. This is going to be an offset line here, half of the amount of 720. So this is 360 thousandths of an inch. What other measurements am I going to need to have? Oh, here's an important one too. I'm really cutting this pocket in here. And because I'm using a round cutter, it's not going to cut square corners. So I need to make this a little bit longer than the 12.5. I'm going to use a 1/4 inch flat end mill. Half of that quarter is 1/8. So I wanted 1/8 longer here and 1/8 longer here. So rather than do 12.5, I'm actually going to make this 12 3/4. And that's going to help get the piece to fit in there. But I'm going to offset from this line half of 12 3/4. So this line from the center line is going to be offset 6 3/8, which is 0.375. So that offset will be that amount there. All right, let's open up Mastercam and get started. I'm in Mastercam X7. If this isn't the software you're using, there's still a lot to learn because a lot of the processes are kind of the same. I do always have a piece of paper in front of me. I'm going to start with machine type router. I am specifically using the Techno Servo RMD7. That brings up my property manager here. Under properties, I'm going to set up my stock. The piece of wood that I have is actually larger than the part. So I think the piece of wood I have is 19 inches by 15 inches, and it's 3/4 inch ply. It's a little bit less than that. So I'll set it to 0.740. And I check that with calipers. If I want to see it, I click display. The cutter is going to be set on the top of the board in the center. F9 on my keyboard are the Cartesian coordinates. Now that I'm kind of set up, I'm going to start creating my geometry. Up here is create. I'm going to create a rectangle. I want to start at the origin and go up. I want it centered at the origin, so this button here is anchored to center. And then this is my part. So the width of my part is 17.5, and the height of my part is 13. And I'll hit enter. Done the operation, green check mark, and then this little snowflake is fit to screen. I'm going to create what's called a construction line, and that means I'm going to delete it when I'm done. It goes from center to center, and I'm going to reflect over that line. Now that I have that line drawn, I'm going to offset it. If you're looking in the bottom right corner of your screen, I'm going to offset it that 0.360. That's X-form offset. And that offset window is going to be 0.360. And it's going to be a copy, and I'm going to offset it that way, 0.360. Next, I'm going to offset that top line, X-form offset. I'm going to select this line at 2 1/4, so 2.25. It's going to be this line down, and then this line up. I'm done the operation. My next offset is going to be 6 3/8 from that center line over. So again, X-form offset, 6 3/8 is 6.375. It's going to be the center line onto that side. And then I think I just need to offset these right here, 0.720 down. So X-form offset the width of my MDF, 0.72. And it's this line down and then this line up. And it's all created. The next thing is trimming these lines. I'll zoom in a little bit. And then this right here is clear colors. That helps a lot. You got to be really conscientious not to have lines stacked on each other. Okay, next I want to trim this off. There are two ways I could do this. One is I could just delete the line altogether and then just create new lines, because I have those key points from here to here. You see how it turns yellow when I get on the endpoint? It is important that you snap on the endpoint. So I could do it that way, or the other way I could do it as well is I go to the trim tool and select delete between two given lines. Either one works. This is my center line. I don't really need to keep that. That's only really for reflecting over, but I do want to trim this line back to here. So again, trim. This is what I'm trimming to there. Trim that to there, that to there, and that to there. So now I think I'm ready to reflect. I'll do some more trimming after I reflect. So I have created geometry, so it's actually going to be a mirror under X-form. What is it you want to mirror? I'm going to select all of that. And you see this thing turned yellow, which I don't want yellow. And this thing should have been selected. So I'm going to delete that, but it's going to be a double line. I'm done selecting. So I hit this green ball to say I'm done my selection. And then it's going to have this pop-up menu. What do you want selected or reflected over? I'm going to reflect it over a vertical line. And there it is. I'm done the operation. I'm going to go to clear colors. I want to delete that line. And you see how I deleted it and then it came back? It's because I reflected it over itself and copied it. So I have to delete it a second time. I hit clear colors to make sure I deleted it. So this is looking pretty good. There's my H. I got to trim it all up. So I'm going to trim this line to here, that one to there, that one to there. And then just show you the other way to do this. I want to trim this out. So I'm going to go to trim as well. Got a green check mark, and then I'll go back to trim, and I'll select this one, and I'll take that out. Whoops. Oh no, I guess because I reflected it. So now I'm going to tool path it. I'm going to cut the pocket first so the board's held down well. I'm going to go tool path, pocket. How do I want to name that tool path? I could call it something like pocket or H, or it's not going to be the part. It's actually just going to be on the manager here. So I'm going to name it pocket. I am going to select it right here with the chain. I'm going around. As I go around, I see the whole thing turned yellow. That means there are no double stack lines and all of my vertices are connected. After I'm done selecting it, it's going to have this pop-up menu here. And then again, I'm going to use the tool library. I am going to select a 1/4 inch straight bit. A good feed rate would be something like 100 inches per minute, and a plunge rate set half of that, 50 inches per minute. Let me go down, work my way down here, holder, nothing, cut parameters, really nothing there. Finishing means it's going to cut that pocket and then do one last pass to clean it up. Depth of cut, this is a very important setting. This is how much it'll take out on a single path. I don't need to do it in this case, but I do it as a safety. The rule of thumb is less than the diameter of the bit, so I'm going to set it at the diameter of the bit, 0.25. Breakthrough, linking parameters, these are all set to absolute because I call my top of stock 0. Therefore, the depth is a negative value. I'm going to go down negative 0.25. Now I'm done that tool path. That actually looks pretty good. The next thing I'm going to do after I tool path that is that now I'm going to round my corners. I'm going to go up to the fillet here. I'm going to maybe put 1-inch fillets on there. And I'll click on these corners. And then now I'm going to cut out the board itself. So again, I'm back to tool path. I'm going to cut it out with a contour. This is a different type of tool pathing. It's a contour, not a pocket. I'm going to select with a chain. That's this. I'm going to click on this side of the midpoint, and that's going to give me an arrow to the right. Again, my whole line turned yellow. That's what I want. I'm going to use that same 1/4 straight bit. I'm going to set the feed rate for 100, the plunge rate for 50. And then when I get to cut parameters here, this is important. My arrow is going clockwise, so I can see my arrow here. If I want the bit on the outside of my part, I need left-hand compensation. So if I'm going clockwise and my bit is on the outside, I need left-hand compensation. Depth of cut, this is very important. If you don't set this, you'll break the bit, because now I'm going through the 750 thou. Again, the same as the diameter of the cutter. Lead in, lead out. This is so you cut laterally. You could leave it in here, but I want to make sure I don't hit any of my screws, so I'm going to turn it off. Breakthrough, multi-passes, tabs. I am going to tab it. This is a way to help hold it down. I'm going to do automatic tabs, and I'm going to hit tab all. 4 tabs. I might actually want to put 8 tabs on there to help hold it down. Linking parameters. Again, these are all absolute. I'm going to set this to negative 0.74. The plywood checked on calipers is 740 thou. So there's my tool path. I can see it's going clockwise. The cutter's on the outside. And then these are my pockets. On my left here, only one of them selected. To select them both, I hit that. Now they're both selected. I go File, Save As. I save this file on my hard drive so I could access it again. And you certainly want to save it before you verify it. Then I'm going to go to Verify. This is going to show me what the run's going to look like. I'm going to verify to isometric view. It should run the pocket first. So it's running the pocket, and then it cuts out the part, and it looks good. You can just see the tabs right there. Okay, after I verify it, then I'm going to what's called posting it. And this is a conversion from all this vector information into the actual G code that the CNC runs. So I'm going to actually post it onto a flash drive. I'm going to put on my flash drive. I usually title it something, my X dimension first, so 17.5. I can't put any decimals in there. X 13. So I know what my X is, what my Y is, and then I'm going to say balance board. So this is a conversion into the code that actually runs out there, and then here's all of my G code. You can see there's quite a few lines of code, 450 lines of code. Cutting that pocket is the majority of it. Okay, next parts I'm going to draw are the rollers. They're 12.5 long with the 2-inch height. I'll show you how to do that in Mastercam. I'm actually going to make them, I'm going to offset this 1/4 of an inch right here to go into the pocket. This board, that cross board, I'm only going to make 1.5 high by 0.06 over 7. So 60 thou over, so I'm using that 0.720 MDF. So that's going to be the extra 30 thou right there. I'm actually not even going to run that in Mastercam. I'm just going to hand cut that to make sure it's a good fit. You do want it to be a lot shorter than the 2 so the square ends don't roll over. So let's go to Mastercam and get that going. Okay, let's go ahead and do the rolling legs now. What I did was I started with create rectangle. I snapped on the origin and had it anchored at the center. And I made that 12.5 inches long by a 1/4 inch high. And this little rectangle here is what's going to pop down into the pocket on the board. Then I drew a line from the center all the way to the top. This line's exactly 2 inches long. You could probably play around with a lot of different radiuses on your board, but the way I'm going to do mine is I'm going to go create arc. I'm going to go to a 3-point arc, and then saying, where's the first point? I'm going to snap on that. I'm going to snap on that corner there. And I could keep dragging it around, but then I'm going to snap on that 3rd point over there. So there's my arc. That actually looks like it's going to work pretty well. I hit green check mark. And like I did before, I'm going to trim this line back to there and then reflect it over that center line. So X-form mirror. What do you want to mirror? I want to mirror this. I'm done selecting. I'm going to mirror it over that vertical line. And then I'll delete that line there. I think I'm actually also going to delete this line here. So there's my whole roller piece. From here, I'm just going to drag and copy it. So I'm going to go X-form drag. It's asking me, what do you want to drag? I want to drag this. The whole thing turns yellow. I'm done selecting it. Where do you want to grab it? I'll just grab it right here. And if it's just moving it and not copying it, that's this button here. So this is a move and this is a copy. I think I'll just maybe put it right above there. I want to make sure I have enough room so that 1/4 inch bit could run around the outside of it. So that looks pretty good. Clear colors. I'm going to do one more. X-form drag. I'm going to select all of them, both of them now. And then I'll snap right there, and I'm going to try and center them in my board. So this time I am going to go to move, and there's my wood stock, and I'll put it right inside there, and it's a little bit off. I'm going to have to move that around, and then I'm going to tool path it as a contour around the outside. Again, remember about 100 inches per minute on the feed rate, 50 inches per minute on the plunge rate. Don't forget to set your depth of cut. I won't do all that. You probably get that from the first thing. Go ahead and tool path that, run these legs, and you're good to go. Centerboard, you could cut on the table saw, or you could also program that in here as well. The flash drive on the computer out in the shop, I load my program into the actual interface with the Techno CNC. I zero my board out at the origin at the center. It's fixed down with screws way outside of my build window. After I have my 1/4 inch flat end mill right there, I got to make sure I zero out the origin up here. All right, run it. Check with the instructor first. Safety has to be job number 1. Little high speed run time here. And then when you're all done running it, you want to take it over the bandsaw, trim off any of that excess, use a flush trim router bit to clean it up, sand, and then assemble with glue and just a couple screws, ready to start balance boarding.